Budget 2022. Budget that lays the foundation for future. Budget for Atmanirbhar Bharat.
This budget continues to provide impetus for growth. It lays a parallel track of 1. A blueprint for the Amrit Kal, which is futuristic and inclusive.
People-friendly and progressive. Creating new possibilities of infrastructure, investment, growth and jobs.
Big public investment for modern infrastructure, readying for India at 100. This shall be guided by PM Gati Shakti and be benefited by synergy of multimodal approach.
New milestones for Digital India.
इस बजट का भी फोकस गरीब, मिडिल क्लास और युवाओं को बुनियादी सुविधाएं देने और आय के स्थायी समाधानों से जोड़ने पर।
Join the exclusive conversation on Union Budget, perspective of industry leaders. Watch DD Conclave on Union Budget 2022, 28th February, Chennai.
Sponsored by Investor Education and Protection Fund Authority, Informed Investor, Empowered Investor, Smart Investor, Bank of Baroda, we live in your world. Paisabazar.com, पैसों से बढ़कर. Indian Bank, your own bank, always with you. NLC India, creating wealth for well-being. Canara Bank, together we can. Nalli Chinnasamy Chetty, Panagal Park, Chennai. Repco Bank, grow with us. Nippon Paint, Asia's real #1 paint, and print media partner Dina Malar. நிதிநிலை அறிக்கை 2022 வருங்கால வளர்ச்சிக்கு அடித்தளம் அமைக்கும் நிதிநிலை அறிக்கை. இந்தியாவின் சுயசார்பிற்கான நிதிநிலை அறிக்கை.
This budget continues to provide impetus for growth. It lays a parallel track of 1. A blueprint for the Amrit Kal, which is futuristic and inclusive.
மக்களுக்கான முன்னேற்றத்திற்கான நிதிநிலை அறிக்கை. உள்கட்டமைப்பு, முதலீடு, வளர்ச்சி மற்றும் வேலை வாய்ப்புகளுக்கான வழிவகைகளை உருவாக்கும் நிதிநிலை அறிக்கை.
Big public investment for modern infrastructure, readying for India at 100. This shall be guided by PM Gati Shakti and be benefited by synergy of multimodal approach.
டிஜிட்டல் இந்தியாவிற்கான மைல்கல்.
इस बजट का भी फोकस गरीब, मिडिल क्लास और युवाओं को बुनियादी सुविधाएं देने और आय के स्थायी समाधानों से जोड़ने पर।
சிறப்பு கலந்தாய்வு அரங்கத்தில் இணைந்து கொள்ளுங்கள். தொழில் அதிபர்களின் பார்வையில் நிதிநிலை அறிக்கை. நிதிநிலை அறிக்கை 2022க்கான கலந்தாய்வு அரங்கம் பிப்ரவரி 28ஆம் தேதி பிற்பகல் 2 மணி முதல் தூர்தர்ஷன் அலைவரிசைகளில் நேரடி ஒளிபரப்பு. Sponsored by Investor Education and Protection Fund Authority, Informed Investor, Empowered Investor, Smart Investor, Bank of Baroda, we live in your world. Paisabazar.com, पैसों से बढ़कर. Indian Bank, your own bank, always with you. NLC India, creating wealth for well-being. Canara Bank, together we can. Nalli Chinnasamy Chetty, Panagal Park, Chennai. Repco Bank, grow with us. Nippon Paint, Asia's real #1 paint, and print media partner Dina Malar.
பொதிகையுடன் இணைந்திருங்கள்.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to the DD Conclave on Union Budget 2022. DD Conclave on Union Budget 2022 sponsored by Investor Education and Protection Fund Authority, Informed Investor, Empowered Investor, Smart Investor, Bank of Baroda, we live in the world, Paisabazar.com, Paisan Sibadkar, Indian Bank, your own bank, always with you, NLC India Limited, creating wealth for well-being, Canara Bank, together we can, Nalli Chinnasamy Chetty, Panagal Park, Chennai, Repco Bank, Grow With Us, Nippon Paint, Asia's real #1 paint, print media partner Dinamalar. In budget 2022, a lot of emphasis was given to creating a digital India, as every project announced is all about making use of technology. I warmly welcome you all to the session 3, Budget for Digital First India for Inclusive Digital Ecosystem. டிஜிட்டல் இந்தியாவிற்கான பட்ஜெட் தொடர்பான அமர்வுக்கு வருகை தந்திருக்கும் உங்கள் அனைவரையும் வருக வருக என வரவேற்கின்றோம். I welcome our panelist, Sri Jaishankar, CEO, FSS Paytech, Sri J. Venkatramu, CEO, India Post Payment Bank, New Delhi, Sri Arun Jain, Founder, Polaris Group and Managing Director, Intellect Design, Professor Tillai Rajan, IIT, Chennai. Sri Gautam Roy will moderate the session. I welcome Sri Gautam Roy onto the stage.
Well, good evening to you all and welcome once again. I'm Gautam, as Eva mentioned, and we are now talking about budget for digital first India for inclusive digital ecosystem. Now, this is a very vital part of the budget this year because a lot of trust has been given to it. Imagine if we go into the history of digital India. When the pandemic happened, what would have happened if we hadn't had the kind of development that we have already had for our digital ecosystem? How would we have battled the pandemic? How would we have rolled out the vaccination drive? It would have been completely impossible because digital India has been the backbone of that. In terms of financial inclusion as well, we've already seen how JAM really took that through, and now digital India is also going through another revolutionary transformation. There are so many exciting areas that are coming in through this budget itself. If you talk about EdTech, there's going to be an e-university. If you talk about the financial system, the fintech system, there will be post offices that will be brought in like they were not earlier into the ecosystem as well. We will have a lot of focus on drones, a lot of focus on health tech as well. So everything is now moving into this area where it will get an exponential boost as well because of 5G being rolled out. So to talk about all that and what and how it will impact our lives is what our panel is all about today. We have, as Emma mentioned, Jaishankar AL, CEO FSS Paytech. They say that they are Asia's largest integrated payment hub. We have J. Venkatramu, CEO India Post Payment Bank. We also have Arun Jain, founder Polaris Group and Managing Director, Chairman, Intellect Design, which is a software products company in banking, finance services and insurance space. And Professor Tillai Rajan, Department of Management Studies, IIT Chennai. I believe you're the person that everyone turns to when they want to talk about startups and their funding and their growth and scaling. So welcome to you all once again. First, if I could come to you, A.L. Jaishankar, in terms of how the budget has put across a lot of focus on different aspects of the digital India ecosystem, especially a lot of focus on startups. Already we're doing very well with the third largest ecosystem. We've had a record number of unicorns as well last year, and already we're seeing that that record might be broken this year too, just in the first 2 months. Do you feel that we're just giving the right thrust in the right areas because a sub-sectoral approach is also being taken there?
Absolutely. I think the government is working on a war footing in making sure that digitization is given a complete push and across multiple sectors. Broadly, there are 3 things that are needed for you to ensure that there is a thriving ecosystem leveraging technology. One of which is obviously with the government coming up with the right policy, right, that supports the ability for an entire ecosystem to start coming up. The second is the technology intervention. And the government of India is doing a lot of good work, including the regulators and the banks, right? They're doing extremely well in the context of making sure that that the technology intervention is brought in and supplied into the ecosystem, is infused into the ecosystem. And last but not the least, right, the entire ecosystem partners, it takes an entire village to make it happen, as they say, right? So I think India is at a momentous space where the entire Western world is looking up to India. They're all looking eastwards, and India is truly doing what it takes to ensure that this ecosystem comes up for Bharat and for Bharatvasis. So I definitely believe that, the government is upping its game in this area, and that's absolutely welcome.
Okay, great. That's a good way to begin then. Now, J. Venkatramu, CEO, India Post Payment Bank, the way the government is also taking the digital banking and payments ecosystem forward is again quite a remarkable aspect of the budget. The financial support for digital payment ecosystem that is being extended further. It's being brought forward. 1,500 crore rupees will be there as well. And then, of course, there's 75 digital banking units because we're in the 75th year of our independence as well. So that's something that one is looking out for. And all post office banks are going to be brought into the core banking umbrella as well to boost financial inclusion. All these steps, do you think, will take the entire ecosystem of digital payments and how even benefits are transferred to people, beneficiaries by the government and other bodies? Will this get a huge, huge boost?
Yeah, definitely. No doubt about that. So before getting into what this budget can probably offer in future, let's take a step back and understand what has happened in the last, say, 5 years or so. As you rightly mentioned, the JAM Trinity has ushered in the total financial inclusion. If you look at the number of bank accounts that got opened through JAM Trinity, is humongous. And that actually paved way for disbursal of direct benefit transfers directly into these bank accounts. So that way, more and more people who were part of the DBT net has now got money directly into their bank account. And where post office as well as the post bank facilitated is in terms of the reach. Typically, every post office covers 2 to 3 villages. That way, the proximity part is taken care of. And with the DBT rails, the money disbursal to the end customer has started happening through post offices. And with the establishment of India Post Payment Bank, what really helped the Department of Post is establishing of a digital bridge between the banking ecosystem and the Department of Post. As you know, Department of Post has a deeper network with more than 1,55,000 plus post offices. This actually solved the problem of financial inclusion to a large extent. So it is more about having a proper infrastructure already for financial inclusion. And going forward, if you look at the budget announcement, yes, making entire post office network connected with the interoperable digital banking ecosystem can actually help expand more and more banking services. As we've already seen how interoperable services like Aadhaar-enabled payment system helped in disbursal of DBT benefits. I think as a next step, it's more about democratizing something like credit through the post offices with the help of various other banks.
Certainly, I mean, that's where technology really comes in, the kind of base that has been set. How could that be leveraged best? Again, Arun Jain, if I could ask you to come in on that, because you are in that space, banking, finance services, insurance as well. And the kind of support that our businesses, especially small businesses, need, and especially in this phase when when times were tough during the pandemic, do you feel that this is something that has been demonstrated quite well as to how this situation can be handled through the kind of backbone that has been built using the digital ecosystem already? And what are the ways that we can, further build upon it?
Thank you for digital push which is happening. And as my previous speaker spoken about the last 5 years what happened. So there is if you look at the digital first as an agenda in multiple frames. One frame is what we have accomplished till now. We have accomplished a backbone where we have a real-time payments happening. We have a DBT. You mentioned about vaccination happen at the last mile. So digital is the key word here, not financial services alone. So I look at it 3 frames evolving from it. First frame is digital first for urban cities. Urban cities where there are smart people who are using mobile, who are having a lot of, whether you use Zomato or you use any services, they are the digital first, they are mobile first. Then there is a second frame which is about rural India. Rural India, I will start from Panchayat as a starting point. And if you look at Panchayat as a starting point, which get aggregated at a block level, which get aggregated at a district level, there are 7 things they have to do. They have to do about their personal development, leadership development, Panchayat education, how the Panchayat is running, how the healthcare system is running, how the education system is running, how it can be used for FPO, how can it be used for SHG, how can it be used for water management, how can it be used for soil management. So this is a multiple area where digital can significantly make a difference, but I think somewhat recently the focus becomes the financial sector and unicorn. It doesn't remain where the digital empowerment of Panchayat transformation can happen over there. Okay. And it's a big opportunity with the digital being there. Can we give a mobile phones to each sarpanches? There are 250,000 sarpanches in the country. It's not a big cost to service them and educate them on what kind of services can be available and then build up the system from a bottom-up. This is frame number 2. Frame number 3 I'm talking about is international. What we have done, achieved in India, can we take this digital first to all African countries? China is influencing African country by port, by assets, by roads. Can we do by the digital? Can we do the counter-attack on Africa or CIS country where we give national digital infrastructure by combining all the forces of private sector and government sector coming together, the way we are doing digital procurement using GEM, which is supporting by Intellect is supporting that software. We are supporting the technology for Reserve Bank of India. We are supporting the technology for LIC. So there are many FSS supporting the payment hub. So multiple private sector player plus government practices of DBTs and MPCI come together, and we can just say that we can go Mr. X Kenya or any Mauritania, any country. We can come to you together and give you digital infrastructure. It's the export of services. It's the export of technology, and it's countering China in a significant manner. So that's how I look at digital first in 3 frames. Frame 1, urban. Frame 2, rural. Frame 3, international.
Oh yes, we definitely have a multi-pronged approach there. But let's talk about something that gets us very excited, which is about startups. We have the 3rd largest ecosystem among startups in the world, and this is a space which is growing very rapidly, and it is penetrating into our hinterlands as well. And if I could ask you, Professor Tillai Rajan, the way this system, this entire ecosystem is now being approached subsectorally as well. If you talk about health tech, ed tech, drones, and other aspects, there's of course fintech as well. A lot of thrust on different schemes being rolled out, different fund for agri-tech startups as well. Do you feel that is the right approach now that our startup ecosystem has matured to quite a formidable degree?
Oh yes, definitely. So let me kind of structure my response into 3 categories. So one is to really look at the government push as far as the digital India is concerned. Right? So I'm an academic, so therefore I'm going to look at kind of slightly a research framework to look into it. So when somebody says an intention, the intention has to be very credible, right? So that's what we talk about. The signaling has to be very strong. So is the signaling very strong from the government's perspective in terms of the digital push? So what I did was I looked at the budget speech that happened in the last 3 years and tried to look at what has been the emphasis on digital in the last 3 budgets. So in the 2020 budget speech, I looked at the budget speech and then counted the word digital. It appeared 6 times. In 2021, again took up the budget speech and then counted the word digital. It appeared 12 times. In 2022, earlier this month, the budget was presented. I took the budget speech and then counted the word digital. It was 36 times, right? So in a span of 3 years, the emphasis on digital has significantly increased, right? And that is seen, right? So when you say something repeatedly, that means that there is more emphasis from the policy side on something that is digital, right? So an interesting thing about digital is, okay, there is a lot of action from the government side, but then it is actually getting along the private sector. So unicorn, as we all know, it's kind of capturing the imagination of the youth today, right? I mean, that's something that people are all running after. Numbers are being there, so there are about 90 unicorns that are there in India today. And if you look at these unicorns, and then you find that at least 50%, I'm talking about at least 50% of them have some connection, some interface with the digital world, right? It could be in terms of payments, it could be in terms of some of the technologies that you have mentioned, EdTech, health tech, and all of this thing, at least 50, right? So together, if you're looking at minimum of about $100 billion value of all these 90 unicorns, I'm saying in a very, very conservative basis, simply because many of them have a value that is higher than $1 billion, right? So 50% of them, we are talking about a value creation of at least $50 billion, right? So $50 billion that have been created in the last 5 years, that's so much of wealth that has actually been created, right? And naturally, if you look at it, this wealth has certain kind of basis, right? So how is this value being created? I mean, obviously, the capital that is flowing in, the investors who are investing, they are all very intelligent investors. They are all very knowledgeable investors. So where they see the value coming in? Right? So the value is coming in from the digital, from mainly in terms of removing the inefficiencies in the system, right? So, I mean, if you look at the basic physics or science, so when there is friction, what happens, right? When there is friction, there's a lot of heat gets generated. And to get work done, more energy has to be given, right? I mean, to move an object in a very friction surface, there's more energy needed. But if it's a smooth surface, there is less energy is needed, right? So digital is creating a very similar situation in transactions. There is so much of intermediation that used to happen. That's creating a lot of friction. But today, because of the digital world, many of this intermediation is kind of getting bypassed, and therefore the entire transaction cost is becoming, much, much lesser. And that's creating a lot of value, right? So that's the source of value that today we are seeing. It's getting manifested in terms of startups, but then obviously a lot of large companies are also trying to take advantage of the digital era, but then it's getting manifested significantly in the way that we see startups are doing things. Right. So I will kind of stop here for the moment and move further.
Well, what will take it really forward is the kind of emphasis that is also being put on skill development now. There's always talk of that we need to skill, rescale, upskill, but how do you do that? Well, that again will be through the digital means. That will be online. So, and the delivery will then be very, very democratized. We're talking about the Desh Stack e-portal. That is a digital ecosystem for skilling and livelihood. Now, if we could talk about that, A.L. Jaishankar, that is a dire need that our industry has. I'm sure your company too, because there's attrition, people come and go, join companies, then you have to bring in new people, train them to work in your sort of a culture. And that is always a challenge for our companies. How would this help tackle this particular issue that a lot of our companies encounter?
So attrition is not really a bad news. In fact, if you ask me, attrition is good. What that clearly means
is people move on to better jobs.
Absolutely. There are people moving out for better jobs, right? So I think attrition needs to be viewed in the context of, better opportunities that people go out for, right? And I think if you step back and think about what leads to this attrition is because somewhere down, it's not just about money, but learning stops, right? And if you need to exponentially step up the learning in people, you will need to go back and figure out a way to do it frictionless, like Professor said some time back, right? So how can you look at a frictionless method of being able to support people with their learning and development that will allow people to look at skills in a very different light, right? Technology has moved on. Technology is not really how it used to be earlier. It's moved on from enterprise class technology to internet class technology. And, systems like Aadhaar and many others have been able to prove that the entire way in which you architect, the entire way in which you design for technology has significantly moved. So therefore, there is a need for people to reskill. And I think the government of India is doing the right thing by ensuring that they bring in technology, and not just in the context of, say, payments, as one of those that we spoke earlier, not just in the context of health tech, but also in the context of ensuring that you are able to democratize learning, you're able to disseminate learning in a very large way. And I think that's a very interesting move this time around, where we are looking at a platform approach to looking at disintermediating or, going away from the erstwhile methods of learning and leveraging technology here. So I think, the government of India, to Professor earlier, 36 times, and I believe that, it will really continue to be counted many, many more as you see the year through in almost all of the communication that government of India does, right? So skill development, I believe technology has got a significant role to play in how it democratizes learning and support people with their skills, especially newfound skills that are needed for them to be employable.
Great. Now, J. Venkataramu, in terms of what is to come in, what is to unfold in the course of, say, this year itself, what really makes you really excited as to, when that will happen? There will be something very transformative happening in the country. For example, the rollout of 5G, which again, the government is supporting quite a lot through the budget as well.
Yeah, that's a good news as far as connectivity is concerned, because connectivity is one of the backbone for growth of ICT. Even now, with the growth of, say, 4G kind of technology, still there are vast pockets where we do have network blind spots. And that at times actually makes it very, very difficult for us to transact. I mean, that too, when we use technology which is completely requiring a real-time, transaction processing capability, it becomes very important for us to have that. I think more than 5G, 4G, I think it's more about the availability of network connectivity uniformly across the country, and more importantly across the remotest part of the country, especially hilly regions. When you go, I mean, whatever network connectivity that we have, you still find it difficult to enable or process some of the transactions. So on a similar note, I think in order to be compatible with the network bandwidth that is available, especially feature phone based transaction enablement can be an alternative for us to move forward. So having said that, I think we need to have a couple of
And that too will be coming very soon, right?
Yeah.
Because it's been talked about for quite some time and we've been hearing a lot about it, and I believe within the span of, say, next 3-4 months, we may have some movement in that area.
Yeah, I can share with you, we've also come across a few startups who've approached us and said that they will be able to utilize the bandwidth that is available for a normal feature phone over smartphone. So which means the interface that a customer uses will still be a smartphone, but the underlying connectivity that is used for passage of information will be like a feature phone.
So bandwidth required will be much less.
Yes. So that way the bandwidth requirement would be very less, and right. Hopefully that should work.
Oh yeah, it should definitely. I mean, that's what technology does. It evolves and it finds a way and solves problems, and problem solving is what this entire effort is all about. Arun Jain, if we ask about the kind of efforts that are being put in ensuring that there is a digital university as well, which works on a hub and spoke model, and it will again work mostly online. The university will probably come up with the curriculum and all, but it will be taken out to students through different institutions at different levels. How will this help, a company like yours? And do you feel that it will contribute hugely to where our digital ecosystem can be in the coming years?
You touch upon two topics, not one topic. One is digital university, and second is what is the relevance of it to our private sector. To me, Digital India, we need 100 million people to be trained and learn Digital India. So 100 million people, and IT industry employs some 4 to 5 million people in all.
Right
it's
now,
a very
yes.
small component of the total digital university mandate. To me, I think we need to relook at today what we are doing in a digital university, we are translating the same content to the digital university. I don't know that's the right way to do it. The whole fundamental of digital university will be done very differently. You need to touch upon many different things. I spoke to, last month, I had a session on design thinking for third year and fourth year engineering students on design thinking. There are 22,000 students participated in that session. By single address, I could able to address 22,000 students. Then I had a second design thinking session of 18,000 students with 8th, 9th, 10th standard student, that how design thinking, how you shape the thinking of the people before they come to the digital university. And then we built up a system called group of 10 people to learn, because for learning community, you don't learn only from the content which you are depicted in a Coursera or digital university. You learn from the group of 10 members who talk to each other and they act as a sounding board to you. You need to create some community-based learning systems along with digital university. And that's where the gap is, because we are not redesigning the systems around the new digital first agenda. We are saying, okay, we can just do a digital degrees to the people, but all of us, we learn from peer level learning. Our peer level learning is more than the learning. I should not be speaking in front of professor, but that's where
I will come to him on that.
yeah, but the question is the peer level learning. You learn from seniors, you learn from juniors, and that's how the whole university works. Now, in digital ecosystem, where is that opportunity to work on that kind of a system unless I have some intermediate layer of touch and feel of the technology on digital side? And that's where the design thinking can play a substantial role in entire way of thinking and designing this kind of a change, which is, opportunity is there, so there's no doubt about opportunity, but I think we need to pause before jumping and shooting without understanding the complexity of leveraging this. To me, as a private sector, zero value.
Okay. Now, Professor Tillarajan, the way that Arun Jain talked about it, it seems that EdTech needs to be expanded in a major way. We're already seeing a lot of companies coming up, a lot of startups there as well. But the requirement for our industry, for all this kind of services that can be delivered through the digital medium is huge. He said 100 million people need to be trained in a span of, I don't know, 3 or 4 years perhaps? Or you meant each year? You said 100 million figure, right? That was for how many years?
100 million, I think we need to start looking at it, the whole skill set using digital university. There's many things which can be done over the 3-year period, I would say.
3-year period.
Yeah.
So how can that be actually done, Professor Rajan? Do we have the means to deliver that kind of requirement? Can we deliver on that?
So I think this is a very interesting point that you have mentioned. So I am looking at skill building and teaching a little differently. Okay, so the broad concept I think that we have to look at here is, any change gets a lot of resistance, right? I mean, any change, for example, gets a lot of resistance. And for people to accept the change, I mean, it has been, researchers said that there has to be some change involved that looks at changing the behavior of the people, right? Their habits, their attitudes, the behaviors. So that needs to change for people to be able to adopt and any new change. Right? So, and it has also been found that among various changes that that people are faced with, the resistance is very low if you are looking at change in the entertainment sector, right? So one of the major reasons why some of the youngsters have been able to kind of pick up many of the digital technologies is because their first exposure to many of this were from the perspective of entertainment, right? So once people got used to these changes, they were able to pick it up very fast, right? So digital today is kind of going to be very important, and if we have to take everybody along the way, then everybody will have to be trained, right? So the training can happen directly or the training can happen indirectly. For example, you do some teaching and along the way people get trained. You do some skill building and along the way people get trained. But there could also be a need where training has to be done in a very conscious manner, right? So today if you look at the demographics of India, 65% of the people are less than the age of 35 and 35% are above, right? So the general tendency is there is reluctance among the senior citizens of the country to get adjusted to accept the digital technologies. But then if we have to really become truly digital, we have to take everybody along the way, right? So how do we really ensure that the skill building and many of the other aspects are done, right? So today India has a very strong grassroots level organizations, for example, right? I mean, we talk about the number of NGOs, the civil society organizations, they are very strong, right? And many of these civil society organizations have played a very important role in delivering the last mile government programs, right? Yes. So if Digital India has to probably go the same route, right, where the government is having a major focus, then I think there is a need, not just rely on digital channels to build the skills, but then rely on some of the very, very extensive grassroots organization that India has, right? To ensure that the last citizen is able to comfortably, adopt and accept some of the new technologies, right? There could be concerns in terms of privacy, there could be concerns in terms of confidentiality, there could be concerns in terms of language barriers, there could be concerns in terms of infrastructure availability. So all of these things, can be addressed if there is some hand-holding, right? And I think today, we don't really have any scarcity in terms of providing that last mile support. And it's up to us to be able to quickly leverage the extensive grassroots organizations that we have to train the people on Digital India. And I think we are well equipped to do that.
Great. Now, another aspect, of course, of this budget has been, which is perhaps generated the most amount of talk, is about digital assets, how they'll be virtual digital assets going to be taxed at 30% level. That's the highest tax bracket that there could be. If anything, we'll have a digital currency, a sovereign digital currency very soon. And talk about opportunities there as well for people to further expand the ecosystem of digital payments as well. Now, Jaishankar AL, do you feel that even with all these changes coming in, we barely scratch the surface of the technology that lies at the base of it, which is blockchain?
See, my own view of blockchain is it's an expensive technology. It isn't something that can... So if you really contrast UPI to that of blockchain, right? I think India has been able to demonstrate, Bharat has been able to demonstrate to its people that, with trust in Government of India and with a program such as UPI, we've been able to take it across masses. Blockchain has been here forever. Blockchain has been there in many Western countries, but it hasn't really taken off the way UPI has. So if you really ask me, a decentralized trust versus a trust in its own government is really what's worked for India, right? So my own assessment is that there are many technologies that can be available, but what appeals to people, what works best for people is really what, drives transactions. And I think UPI has been able to demonstrate to the whole world for how powerful it's been. And it is the equivalent of a SWIFT in the corporate, banking sector. And I think UPI has been able to demonstrate that adequately. Now what India needs is a digital infrastructure that will allow that when the floodgates of transactions open up, it's akin to that of saying that there are many applications. There are applications such as lights, air conditioners, and fans. But what you need is electricity to power all of that. Likewise, if you take the example of automobiles running on village roads, they aren't as efficient. So what India now needs to do is to step back and think about digital infrastructure in the world of payments. There are many applications, and these applications need to be brought into this digital highway so that you are able to process that at scale and at the lowest possible cost, right? So there are many technologies and many applications that will work on the numerator. What you need to have is a digital infrastructure as a denominator to support all of that. And remember, India has just scratched about 10% of its 1.35 billion people that are currently on digital. What happens if we move into the next 20% and 30%? That opportunity is available for us in India right now. So I think we need to go beyond payment applications alone, right? We will definitely require many more payment applications that will solve for Bharat's diversity, depth, and width. But what is equally important is for us to step back and think about how we are able to process these many transactions, right? So there is a lot of work that needs to get done there in the context of digital infrastructure. We need to be able to put that together, just as how Aadhaar is in the context of putting out identity that serves many applications on top of it, such as bank opening and many more. We need to now step back and think about how we develop a digital infra, right, so that payments can be propelled further. So there are many technologies such as blockchain and others that can reside on top of it. But applications alone will not solve for the scale of India.
Okay, you make a very good point there. I'd like to get Jay Venkat Ramu's perspective on that as well in terms of, see, what has happened with digital currencies is that it has caused a lot of excitement, especially among the younger segments of our population who've just started earning and they're looking for avenues to put their monies to get, rapid returns. And that is in itself a pitfall as well. And we've seen that with the up and down fluctuations happening, even at this stage, where you have a certainly a slightly uncertain situation because of what's happening in Ukraine. So the kind of point that Jaishankar made, do you feel that that is very valid for our country, and that's perhaps the path to pursue, rather than blockchain, which is said to be very energy intensive, especially if you mine more digital currency that way, and it's not so good for the environment as well?
Yeah, undoubtedly there's a lot of hype about the cryptocurrency.
Yes,
and
hype is the right word.
Yeah. So if you look at cryptocurrency, I don't think we've still figured out how the value is being derived about. There are only 21 lakh odd Bitcoin that are there, and everybody is trying to chase that, and the value is always doubtful. I think in the Indian context, it's more important that how do we harness this technology? See, fundamentally, any technology for that matter, as long as it is leading to value creation, reduction of costs, that's fine. So from that standpoint, even a digital currency, central bank digital currency, which is in news of late, I think if it can be utilized to deepen the digital payments and financial inclusion, I mean, more importantly, if you look at the penetration of digital payments, yes, we still have some ground to be covered. But more importantly, if that can be utilized towards disbursements of subsidies. Today, if you look at, despite the fact that the entire DBT is getting disbursed through banks, still there is some amount of idle money which is sitting in the banking system. I mean, this leads to some amount of, say, leakage in terms of revenue. I mean, a back of envelope calculation of DBT benefits of 5 lakh odd crores itself leads to a saving of around 10,000 crores annually. So this is the kind of money that is sitting idle across the banking system, and this can be saved probably using something like CBDC, or for that matter, if you take the use cases of e-rupee. I mean, thanks to the concept of e-rupee, there's still a lot of ground to cover on e-rupee, which is again directed at across certain targeted usage. So some of these technologies can definitely be utilized to reduce the overall cost and make it more and more citizen friendly. And lastly, from a financial inclusion perspective, the CBDC or digital money for that matter, if it can come in the form of a credit, especially for the rural market. Okay. See, one basic difference about rural market is most of them, they get it in cash. Unlike you and me, they don't get salary in their bank account. So before digitization, I think creditization is important. Creditization precedes digitization. First, you give them digital credit, and then you can see the digitization of payments happening. So that's how probably we'll have to drive more and more use cases which are credit driven, especially for rural markets. And if you're able to derive value through using technologies like blockchain, I think that's good for the country.
Okay. What is your perspective on this, Arun Jain? Because as he said, having a central bank digital currency will be very handy. It will be a great means of transaction, great means of transferring benefit to beneficiaries. The government does it quite a lot. Now, a great way to ensure that credit is rolled out to those who need it at concessional or even non-concessional rates. But once it becomes a tradable asset, do you feel that things start getting a bit complicated?
Again, I think it's a hype again, whether Jaishankar is mentioning or Venkat is mentioning. To me, these are the fundamental. As of now, it's a hype. DLT technology is not supportable for the kind of a cost structure which is required to support compared to UPI infrastructure, as Jaishankar is putting it. I think we need to understand the use case, how digital currency is so different to create a value for the citizen, which is a 1 billion people, if you want to create a value, and we have a trusted infrastructure. The digital crypto, the DLT technology, blockchain technology comes when there is a no trust in a system. When there is zero, to build a trust in the system is a major purpose of a blockchain. So we need to understand each technology brings certain factors. AI technology brings certain elements, my machine learning brings certain other elements, my drone brings some other value. To me, blockchain has a certain value which when you have a trust to be established in trade finance across countries and cross-border payments where across the country you need a bank guarantees or law documents are there, it has a huge value there. So application of the technology to be there only by the currency is a good tool because you don't have to generate a physical paper and you can have a digital currency which central bank can generate and can be used for leveraging. But I think we need to find a much better, significant use cases in connecting my agriculture production to agriculture market chain. We have MSP models are there. Do we have some other models can evolve around digital currency on the production of, so if the initiative is organic farming for the nation, initiative is ESG over there, if initiative is there where we need to meet the standards of pollution control by 2030, where we need to bring certain elements there which are non-structured, unstructured kind of a components are there, and there if you have a ability to collect the data and then reward them using some blockchain methods, but those has to be thought through. But as of now, the direct application has to be created where the trust is not there. Where the trust is there, your normal technologies can work very effectively.
In any case, there has to be legislation as well. And Professor Tillarajan, the thing is that there is also FOMO, this fear of missing out. You know, it's a huge opportunity. Everybody's getting into it. We should also get into it or we'll miss the bus. Is that something that you feel then leads to this kind of an approach where people still have doubts?
Well, I think the way in which people are looking at is, I think the three speakers have really looked at the need for a case in ensuring that this digital currency can somehow improve transactions, right? But today, that is what people are looking at is not really in a way to improve transactions, but they're looking as an asset where they would like to make an investment, right? And we have seen so many assets evolve over a period of time. So we have seen tulips in the 14th century. And then we have teakwood in the early 90s. Then, as recent people talked about investing in emu eggs, right? So there are different asset bubbles that have come up over a period of time. And then, they have also burst. And then many people have burned their fingers, right? So it's a question that only time can say whether this is an asset bubble or this is something that is going to stay that can facilitate, transactions. But then to come to a question of fear of missing out, right? I think is a very, very significant way people are looking at. Right? Now, for an asset to have value, it should have a limited quantity, right? So then people are talking about, okay, there is only so much, right? There is only so much that is there, and therefore, that is going to be, if you miss out, then how will you get it, right? So you're trying to. So I'm now trying to look at, earlier very similar, things existed as far as gold is concerned, right? People are always saying that there is only limited supply of gold. And so therefore, gold practically does not really have much use. It's an asset, people invest, and then the price increases and people get the returns, right? And people said there is only limited quantity of gold, right? And then what happened today, technology has evolved where people can look at manufacturing gold, right? There are technologies, you don't have to mine, but you can manufacture gold. And thereby what happens is this actually threw open that the supply then becomes limitless. You don't have to be dependent only on mining, right? Whether cryptocurrency will follow the same path, where, once you reach the 21 million, it will further expand where we can generate more number of crypto coins, I don't know, right? So this is something that looking at it as an asset, I think is still not, completely evolved. And going by the current circumstances, when everybody is investing, when everybody seems to be perceivably making a lot of money, so there is no harm in making a very small allocation to a new asset category, right? It's looking at it from an asset allocation rather than purely from asset diversification, right? So that's what is happening here.
Okay, wonderful. Well, that's what Digital India is all about and how it's being taken forward with some debate as well. One thing which is not debatable at all is the kind of role that health tech is playing as well as far as the expansion of Digital India is concerned, especially in this pandemic phase, and a lot of exciting stuff happening there as well. It would have been great if we could have had more time, but I'm told that we need to wrap up here. So with a quick word as to where Digital India is going to take us in another just 5 years from now, what would you have to say, Jaishankar?
It's here to stay, it's here to thrive. I think the entire world is looking at India. Digitization is here. Technology is at the bottom of all of this. It's not just about payments. It's not just about health. It's not just about logistics. It's not just about education. There are several industries that are going to be dictated by how technology is brought in for the applications such as these that we spoke about moves forward. Pharmaceutical is another, right? We are all used to buying tablets, but my body composition is very different than the body composition that somebody else has. So I think technology will drive the ability to give people what they need. That's the power of technology. And technology, in my mind, is not going to be solving a problem any longer. Technology will be brought in to solve for experiences, will be solving for opportunities. And therefore, technology here is absolutely here to stay. I think India has proven to the whole world that there are many industries that can leverage by thinking through technology. And it's not thinking from the past, it's about thinking from the future. So it's no longer incremental, it's non-linear, right? So I think we need to keep that in mind.
Jay Venkatraman, quick 30 seconds from you as well, especially
I think in the words of Prime Minister, this is the decade of decade. More importantly, if you see, you have a lot of tech talent which is there available in the country. I think we should find a way to harness this talent that is available, especially in the government sector where we see a lot of problems and problem solving being there. I think where technology can be implemented. So taking this entire startup talent and using it for solving some of the citizen-centric problems is going to be the future challenge.
Okay. Arun Jain, quick word from you as well.
So Digital India to me is a holistic way of addressing the multi-sectoral problem of India. We have 29 different sectors on which we approach a one citizen and one villager. He can't handle 29 sectors. Digital India is a one solution where we can look at holistically the problem statement around customer, apply design thinking, and then apply design solution of digital on the top of it. I think it's a big opportunity in the next decade to come.
Okay. And Professor Thilarajan, institutionally, people will look to you to produce the problem solvers of the future as well. So from that perspective, what would you have to say about it and where it's being taken?
Okay, I'm just going to explain a little bit philosophically. So if you look at the fundamental concept of life, it's in the DNA, right? So DNA, as we all know, has a triple helix structure, right? So I am just seeing something very similar that is going to happen. So for all along, we have looked at two worlds, right? One is a physical world and the other is a metaphysical world. I think now we are seeing the emergence of a digital world, right? So we are going to really have a very good convergence of these three, right? I'm not saying that digital is going to go separately, but then the linkages between digital and physical world is going to be a lot more stronger. And with these three strands that we are talking about, I think life is going to be beautiful.
Oh yes, definitely. And India will be at the top of that situation. That's what we can all be very sure of. And we will leverage this to the fullest extent for the betterment of not just our own country. We'll do it for the entire world. And that's what we can be very sure of at this point. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about it. Digital India is for the world. That's what we are pursuing here today. And that's what we'll realize in the coming years as well. Thank you.
I thank all the panelists who participated in this session. And now it's time for felicitation. I would like to call Mr. Srinivasan Ramachandran, Additional Director General, Engineering, South Zone, All India Radio and Doordarshan. Now, felicitation for Sri Jai Shankar, CEO, FSS, Paytech. Felicitation for Sri J. Venkatramu, CEO, India Post Payment Bank, New Delhi. Felicitation for Sri Arun Jain, Founder, Polaris Group and Managing Director, Intellect Design. Felicitation to Professor Thilarajan, IIT, Chennai. felicitation to moderator Shri Gautam Rai. Thank you all for attending the third session, Budget for Digital First India for Inclusive Digital Ecosystem. And I would like to thank our sponsors, Investor Education and Protection Fund Authority, Inform Investor, Empowered Investor, Smart Investor, Bank of Baroda, We Live in the World, PaisaBazaar.com, Paisan Se Badkar, Indian Bank, your own bank, always with you, NLC India Limited, Creating Wealth for Well-being, Canara Bank, Together We Can, Nali Chinnasamy Chetty, Panagal Park, Chennai, Repco Bank, Grow With Us, Nippon Paint, Asia's real #1 paint, print media partner Dinamalar. And now we have video message of Sri Shantilal Jain, MD and CEO of Indian Bank about the budget 2022.
Union Budget 2022 is unveiled by our Honorable Finance Minister. Is growth-oriented budget and lays down the roadmap for the growth of the economy for the next 25 years. The four macro themes announced by our Honorable Finance Minister are namely development of modern infrastructure, enhanced focus on digital ecosystem, energy transitions and climatic action, and the technology advancement which is need of the hour so as to take the Indian economy into the higher orbit of growth. PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan is a transformative approach to boost economic growth, mainly driven by its 7 engines of mass transport, waterways, railways, roads, airports, ports, and logistic infrastructure. The focus of the government is thus for infrastructure development, MSME, agriculture, hospitality, transportations, rapid digitization, etc. The announcement of higher than expected capex outlay of 7.5 trillion for FY 2023 is a major step to boost domestic manufacturing and create jobs. With the higher capex by government, the private investment will also crowd in. And this will result in a growth in economy, growth in jobs creations, and also increased financing requirements for the banks. On the banking front, extension of ECLGS up to March 2023 and also increasing the allocation will provide significant support and ease the liquidity issues in the sector post-pandemic. With the allocation of outlay for PM Awas Yojana, we will see a further pickup in financing to the affordable housing segment. Revamping of CGT MSE scheme will benefit micro and small enterprises where majority of them are still operating below pre-pandemic level. The announcement of digital banking unit in 75 districts will be a big driver in improving the digital adoption in far-reaching locations. The amendment to the IBC, that is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, will improve the efficacy of the resolution process and facilitate the cross-border insolvency resolution process. We are comfortable in financing road under HEM scheme as the traffic risk is assumed by NHAI or development agency, and will continue to do so as the budget envisages to build another 25,000 kilometer highway next fiscal. We are fine-tuning our infrastructure lending policies to suit the specific needs of Gati Shakti plan, specifically for multimodal connectivity, logistics, automatic warehouses, etc. We in Indian banks are having policy on organic farming. This policy will facilitate PM Divine through our 171 rural and semi-urban branches located in northeastern states. Direct payment of MSP to farmers will facilitate further financing in agriculture sector. We at Indian banks are ready to capitalize the growth opportunities. Overall, the measures announced will broaden the overall credit ecosystem, strengthen the banks and economy in the long term. Besides this, introduction of digital rupee using blockchain and other technologies will prove more efficient and a cheaper currency management. This will also provide a convenient, safe and reliable payment system to the citizens of the country. Consistency in direct tax regime has led to a stability in tax environment and also gives confidence for making investment decisions and other long-term decisions. The implementation of proposed steps in the budget and also the reforms will help in raising demand, in creation of jobs, and also in turn augmenting India's economic growth.
DD Conclave Budget 2022 was sponsored by Investor Education and Protection Fund Authority, Informed Investor, Empowered Investor, Smart Investor, Bank of Baroda, we live in your world, paisabazar.com, पैसों से बढ़कर, Indian Bank, your own bank, always with you, NLC India, creating wealth for well-being, Canara Bank, together we can, Nalli Chinnasamy Chetty, Panagal Park, Chennai, Repco Bank, grow with us, Nippon Paint, Asia's real #1 paint, and print media partner Dina Malar,